Dr. Rupa Huq.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Here we go again, illiberal legislation on public order and regulating protests, boomeranging back in here after the other place flung it out of the Lords last time. And I don't deny that there can be value in appropriate sentences and tighter enforcement in the face of serious disorder. I mean, pitch invasions are increasingly common and unwelcome nowadays. But, you know, we've got to be proportionate about these things. I agree that in 2019, when we saw Extinction Rebellion on top of tube trains, it did seem a bit bizarre when that's one of the most green forms of transport. They probably didn't make any new fans there. Ditto when the A40 in Acton was blocked. But we all of us prize living in a liberal democracy. And if curbs are done disproportionately, curtailing everyday freedoms primarily in order to win favour with the red tops and play to their party base, play to the gallery, if that's what the exercise is all about, then we do have a problem. And these things are always a balance. But we have to tread carefully when it comes to limiting protest. Not that long ago, the government was going softly on stop and search, and we even saw police sort of dancing with protesters, didn't we? But this bill goes for the eye-catching and draconian, like creating the offence of locking on, where you're potentially subject to 51 weeks in prison and an unlimited fine for intentionally attaching yourself or someone else or an object to another person's object or land capable of causing serious disruption. So vague that it could apply to people linking arms. And not to mention, it's already been said, that the most famous lockers-on in history were, of course, the suffragettes, just outside here, isn't it? Yeah. Viscount Falkland, his foot spur is missing because in 1909 people locked onto it. It's part of our history now. It was never to be replaced. So we have to be aware of being heavy-handed and being led by moral panic on these things. The European Court of Human Rights has held that freedom to take part in peaceful assembly is of such importance it cannot be restricted in any way as long as the person concerned doesn't commit any reprehensible acts. And concerningly, there's such widespread discretion in here that, you know, the police have got carte blanche, really. These laws are not dissimilar to what they have in Russia and Belarus. And if we think about recent protests, the memorable ones of recent years, yes, there's been Extinction Rebellion. There's also been the school strikes, and I don't condone bunking off school, but, you know, Greta Thunberg and her lot, the UK equivalent, they did sort of put the lie to youth as being apolitical and apathetic. And we've had Black Lives Matter, we've had what happened to Colston. But the one I would argue should have been a sea change is the heavy-handed policing of the vigil for Sarah Everard. And, you know, with all these things, in the immediate aftermath, I mean, it was a shocking incident, and the policing was even more disgusting as well. We have a little bit of hand-wringing and concern, but the contents of this bill are a huge disappointment. And unlike, you know, your average road, there's a minimal risk of disruption that it's going to be blocked if you get in your car. Women every day in this country find, when they're going about their lawful business, that their route is blocked on a daily basis. And what I'm talking about is specifically, if you're a woman seeking an entirely legal abortion in this country, it could be for any manner of reasons, and it's probably one of the most stressful and distressing moments of your life. There's a 1 in 4 chance, this is on the Home Office's own figures, that the clinic you attend is subject to protests or vigils from anti-abortion protesters. And I've raised this with a number of different Home Office ministers. I had the 10-minute rule bill in 2020 with massive support, cross-party support, 7 different parties. So I know the will of the House is there. Even the Home Secretary, in an oral question to me in February, was positively glowing. I know she sees a lot of merit in this, but we have a bill to curb protests, and on this one, absolutely nothing. And we know that there's at least 4 new clinics since that 2020 bill. That's 100,000 women a year if you add it all up, and yet the government says that there isn't enough impact to warrant intervention, when we know that there's psychological distress and damage done to these women, and that precious police time is eaten up. You asked the police in Ealing, and I mention Ealing because in my borough we're lucky. We have a pioneering council who put through a public spaces protection order to ban what was over 20 years of harassment at the Mary Stopes clinic. The street there is now transformed, so no more gruesome fetus dolls, No more sort of women being told that they're going to hell for what's a completely legal medical procedure. So, you know, we're lucky in Ealing, but it shouldn't be about luck. And it was an act of last resort by our council, but only 3 other local authorities have followed since. Richmond and Manchester have joined them. So, you know, it's a fundamental part of the rule of law that you get equal protection to the law wherever you are. Why is it only in those 3 places you're covered? And BBC Newsnight had a feature on this last week. They've got a huge file of evidence in Bournemouth at the clinic there, but the council doesn't want to act or shows no signs of acting, because it's an enormously onerous thing for councils who do want to push through this legislation, the burden of proof, the officer time. So just with everything else on local authorities' plates, it's not really a priority for most of them. And we're in a bizarre situation because pending the outcome of a Supreme Court challenge, we could soon be in a remarkable position where women seeking abortion in Northern Ireland have greater universal protections from harassment than they do in England and Wales. Yet at the same time, this bill criminalises a huge range of peaceful, non-disruptive behaviour, going far and beyond what most people would ever deem necessary, with supplementing powers that are already there. So, advance warning from me. I will be seeking to amend this bill to protect women from this most distressing and unpleasant form of protest. And in Canada, Australia, several states of the US, they already have this legislation. It's not a crazy idea. We need a national approach. And people will still be able to protest. People can still protest if they don't like abortion laws in this country, but the appropriate place to do that would be here, not to defenceless women in their hour of need. Every woman should have the same protection that people in Ealing do. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, give or take a little bit of tinkering with wordings and clauses, this public order bill is essentially a regurg. How many? No, because people are trying to get in. He's just eaten up everyone's time. My friends won't get in because of you, because of the so-called honourable gentleman. I realise you were the chair, Madam Chair, Madam Deputy Speaker. So, yes, this is just a regurg, isn't it, of their failed Police Crime Courts and Sentencing Act 2022. It replicates all the underlying principles and measures which their lordships previously debated and comprehensively rejected. So there's no imagination in any of this to deal with real problems, and for that reason, me and all my honourable friends on this side will be voting against this bill tonight.